Welcome to Andy Staples On3 Special Edition. We are here in NRG Stadium. This is where the Michigan assistant coaches helped win the game, win the national title against Washington. What a game, JD Pickell.
Oh, it was a tremendous game. And the final score we talked about on the field, a little bit deceiving. Washington hung around, and it was, I think every bit that the back and forth we hoped it would be going into that third quarter. But at the end of the day, the big boys up front, man. Big people move small people, and Michigan had the big people.
Michigan had the big people, especially at the beginning of the game. The two Donovan Edwards runs, great blocking up front, but also some mistakes by Washington. There was one where, they ran a slant where one of the D linemen slanted. There wasn't a linebacker filling behind him. It's just somebody probably messed up. And unfortunately, when you're playing against someone with the talent of Donovan Edwards, you mess up, he's gone. I think Ohio State learned that in 2022. Washington learned that tonight.
Hard to mess up against a team like Michigan with the talent level they have just across the board. Very low margin for error. Also, I think it's worth noting Michigan, the way they kind of sputtered and were able to overcome that. There was a part in this game, Andy, like third quarter, kind of into the second quarter, where you're like, what is going on? Like, it gave me TCU of last year vibes, where Michigan's throwing the ball when they've run the ball for like almost double-digit yards at that point. Very, very weird, but they obviously ended up kind of being able to overcome that and finish strong and made it count.
So Celeste, the Patriot, says you had us losing and we beat them, clown. Now, I think he's talking to you.
Yeah.
You had them losing. I didn't.
You're really, this is the second time now in a matter of 2 hours.
We actually had somebody,
so
we had somebody in the
relishing
stands.
This.
We had somebody in the stands mention it. So JD and I are filming videos after the game, and somebody calls out JD. He's like, JD, you didn't believe in us. And he points at me. He goes, but you did.
You're loving that.
Of course.
You're loving that.
I'm always wrong on these things.
Hey, I think my record picking Washington now, whether 4 against them, is like 1 right and 4 or 5 wrong. But yeah, hey, Chargers at the game. Washington, the path was narrow. Did not get it done. I'll wear that. And I'll wear it for however long.
Well, and this was what we talked about. This was the possibility that we were talking about when I talked to you when we made the pick. And I said there was that Bill Connolly stat that I saw where this sort of defense is the one Michigan scores 50 against. Now they didn't, because Washington made some good adjustments.
Yeah.
But Michigan did average 8 yards a carry. And that was the thing you worried about, was if they do that, how then do you counter if you're Washington? And also Michigan had Michael Penix Jr. out of sorts. I mean, over 50 attempts and only 5 yards per attempt.
Yeah, it was a fragile formula for Washington going in. We kind of knew the path would be narrow for them, and they would have to have some explosivity downfield. And I mean, they had it at times. I think Roma Dunes, they had a long of 44 on the night, but even so, it wasn't there enough. You didn't have your fastball enough to get it done. And so, yeah, that commenter is exactly right. And like I said, we'll wear that one until they start playing games again.
And Gavin in the chat, very disappointed with the loss, but very excited where this Washington program is going, since we were 4-8 2 years ago. And they were, I mean, this is an unbelievable job by Kalen DeBoer and company. And this puts Washington in such a good position as they move into the Big Ten. The whole world has seen them win all year. Recruits for future, because everybody always thinks that when you win, the next recruiting class. No, it's the recruits 2 and 3 years from now who watched you, who are going to say, Michael Penix was my favorite player when I was a sophomore in high school. Like, those are the guys that you're going to get now. And people realize that this is a legit program that can hang with anybody.
And truthfully, guys in the portal too. I mean, if I'm a wide receiver and I see the numbers that Roma Dunes put up, and you got Will Rogers playing quarterback for you next year, who's a proven commodity, like, there's a lot to like for guys that maybe want to go play football somewhere else that are already proven commodities in their own right.
Yeah. Shadyville asks, who's got it better than us, referring to Michigan.
Should we do it together?
And Woo Agent followed up, nobody. It was a lot of fun watching Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan players do that. Jack Harbaugh did it on the stage. Jim's dad did the who's got it better than us, and the whole crowd goes, nobody.
That was awesome.
It was awesome. And this has been a crazy season for Michigan. So 6 games where Jim Harbaugh didn't coach. You had the Cheeseburger Gate suspension for 3 games, and then the Connor Stallion stuff. And that Connor Stallion story just consumed college football for a month. And think about it, they didn't have their coach for the Penn State game and the Ohio State game.
2 most difficult games of the entire season to that point.
Yes.
I mean, those, if you're going to drop a game, if you're Michigan, those were the 2 that we all had circled.
Yeah. And so you can say what you want about what happened with Connor Stallions. That's fine. But they did win their toughest games after all of that had happened. They did suspend Jim Harbaugh, and they still won. And so Jim Harbaugh got up at the press conference, and it was interesting because the players were asked about the distractions. And before they answered, he jumped in and said, "We're innocent, by the way. I just wanted to say that. We're innocent." And so, it's one of those things where people who think they're cheaters are going to think they're cheaters.
Yes.
But I don't think there's any Michigan fan who's going to feel bad about that. I don't think there's any Michigan player who's not going to proudly wear his ring. And I don't think, like, even if something were to happen and the NCAA were to say, you got to vacate the games that you won before the investigation started, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
We watched what happened.
And I think if you're a third party, like if you're not someone who resides in Columbus, Ohio, or Ann Arbor, Michigan, you're like, hey, listen, I have no dog in this fight, but I saw them go out and whip everybody they played. A lot of those games without their head coach, like, I think we kind of can just see what happened on the field. The eye in the sky don't lie. Yeah.
So Sage in the chat with an interesting point says, didn't throw the ball second half against Penn State, beat Ohio State without the head coach, greatest quote unquote team in history. And Jim Harbaugh brought that up too, where he talked about what a great team this is, because it was a situation where there wasn't one star who just carried them through. It truly was a team effort in every game. And you go right to this one. Donovan Edwards, who was a star going into this season. We thought, okay, Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, the dynamic duo. And Donovan Edwards had a terrible season.
By what we were expecting from him, for sure. I mean, he wasn't utilized nearly as much either. We thought he might be getting more carries.
Because it wasn't happening for him when he did. And then tonight, he just blows up. The relief and just excitement on his face when he came off the field through the tunnel and he hugged somebody, and I think it was Trevor Keegan who gave him a piggyback ride in the locker room.
It's awesome.
Like, you were so happy for somebody like that who had been through so much. And JJ McCarthy talked about it because Donovan's his roommate, and Donovan had talked about going to a psychologist, trying to deal with all of this stuff because your expectations are sky high. You're a 5-star recruit. You've been very good. You go into this season with super high expectations, and it doesn't happen for you. But then on the biggest stage, you're the star.
Absolutely. And I think that kind of hints on an interesting part about this team. Like, are they the most talented team in college football? Probably give the hat tip to Georgia or maybe Alabama. There's a lot of teams that recruited better than Michigan. But you look under the hood, and that story like Donovan Edwards, I think, is a great microcosm of just like, there's so many things from a culture standpoint, from a character standpoint, from a maturity standpoint, that we just couldn't quantify. And I think was a big reason why they propelled and overcame this year.
I think on draft day, we're going to see that this was an obscenely talented college football team.
Without question.
I do think, we talk about the way that Georgia recruits, Alabama recruits, obviously Ohio State, that Michigan has beaten now 3 years in a row. The recruiting rankings are better for Ohio State. But what Michigan has done to develop these players, because I think what you output matters as much or more than what you input, because what you output is how the games get decided.
Without question.
Michigan is about to output a ton of NFL players, a lot on the line of scrimmage. And oh, by the way, there's a lot of really good ones coming back. We saw Kenneth Grant tonight with an unbelievable sack of Michael Penix Jr., who does not go down easily.
No.
Kenneth Grant is an alien, and he's only a sophomore. He has to come back. Mason Graham is coming back.
JJ McCarthy, maybe.
I think JJ McCarthy should come back.
And we're chanting for him.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about one more year, the one more year chant for McCarthy. I thought tonight showed you why he should come back.
I think so too. And I think also you look at the draft class, it's like Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May. You just go down the line there of these quarterbacks. It's like, where does JJ McCarthy fit in? Or is he the fourth guy? Is he the fifth guy? Is he outside the top 5?
Right.
The way he played last night. And it's like, dude, come back another year. Have your Stetson Bennett evolution from one year to the next, go back to back and put yourself even further on the Michigan quarterback all-time rankings.
Yeah, and this team does have to rebuild up front. The line was really old, the offensive line, so they're going to be new guys. Now, they got really talented guys in the waiting in the wings. You were looking at those guys warming up. You're like, whoa, there's some dudes that have not played much yet, but are going to play.
Sure.
But perhaps JJ McCarthy will be relied upon a little bit differently as a senior with a line that's a little bit younger, less experienced, that you've got to kind of break in, and that you might be asked to do more. You might be required to do more. And we don't know exactly what the receiving core is going to look like next year. But if they're a little bit better, a little more dynamic, then JJ McCarthy is going to have a chance to show more than he's shown. And look, he had a chance to show some stuff tonight. We saw one. There was one throw on the right sideline. I was like, okay, now you understand why these NFL people see that ceiling.
Yeah.
But there were other throws where he just missed or he made the wrong read. And so I do think another year, and we might be talking about him in that top 3, top 4 quarterback mix, which that's better for Michigan and probably better for JJ.
Without question. And I think even going back to tonight, like the stat line, he was somewhere 10 for 18. But even that could have been improved. He had a drop from Cornelius Johnson. He had a couple that were contested catches that maybe if you put it in a different spot, your guy comes down with it. But even so, I think like you just said, you see the tools, you see everything that NFL scouts get excited about. And another year in this system under more than likely Sharon Moore, even if he is the head coach, like more continuity. And
Sharon Moore's probably running the offense one way or the other.
Yes.
So we'll see.
He's not going to the NFL.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with JJ McCarthy. But let's talk about Jim Harbaugh, because that's the big question is he going to be back at Michigan next year? How's that going to work? Is the NCAA stuff going to cause a problem, or is an NFL team going to hire him? And so I asked Jim Harbaugh the question on Monday night. I said, no, he had talked about all these accomplishments. He had a really funny story about now I'm welcome at the big person's table.
There you go.
Where his dad, Jack, has an FCS title at Western Kentucky. His brother, John, obviously has the Super Bowl title when he beat Jim in the Super Bowl. And so now Jim has this national title. So they are now all on that, they get to sit at that one table. I think Tom Crean has to sit elsewhere until he can win one.
Sure.
But so I asked him, do you want to add a Super Bowl title to that? And he said, and it's a fair answer, can I just enjoy this? Which I get.
Fair question too, though. Fair question, fair answer.
He interviewed with the Vikings 2 years ago. He flirted with the Broncos last year. The thought is he's probably going to test those waters again. There's 5 job openings right now. That could change. That could grow this week. And talk to Ward Manuel, the Michigan AD, after the game. And he seems resigned to the possibility that Jim Harbaugh is going to look for an NFL job, and makes a lot of sense when he explains why. So here's that clip from Ward.
He's here, and he's extremely gratified. He's extremely happy. This team is extremely happy. I understand. I'm going to say something to y'all that I've said before publicly. I understand why people in the pros will want to hire Jim Harbaugh and talk to him about being a coach. The man went to a Super Bowl, won a conference championship, went to the Super Bowl, went back to the conference championship. In that league, how many did they fire today? How many are gone now? 5, 6? That's like an annual thing. And if I was in the pros, I would want to talk to him because of what he accomplished. However, I'm not in the pros, and I want to keep him as our coach. And that's my cross to bear. But I am proud that Jim is our coach. It doesn't matter with all the stuff that happened in the past, and it really doesn't matter what happens in the future. He's always going to be somebody I'm proud of, who coached the University of Michigan, who led this team. And if he decides that he wants another opportunity to coach in the pros, then I'm going to be happy for him, sad for us. We're going to move on and find the next person to lead. But I want him to stay at Michigan. I've said it. I believed it 3-4 years ago when people wanted me to get rid of him. I didn't because I believed it then, and I believe it now.
So that's Ward Manuel. He got asked also after this, if Jim leaves, are you going to look internally, talking about Sharon Moore? Yeah. He said, I'm going to look at my friends and family in my room, and I'm going to have a drink. That's what I'm going to look at tonight.
Fair, very fair.
I thought that was a fair answer too.
Fair.
But Ward Manuel obviously makes a lot of sense. He's talking. Why wouldn't you, if you're an NFL team, at least inquire about Jim Harbaugh? Sage in the chat asks, is it common for a coach to leave after national championship? I can't remember one other than Howard Schnellenberger. He won at Miami, then he went to coach a team in the USFL. But that's the last one I can remember. So it is uncommon.
Yeah.
But it's happened a couple times. And, the thing is, I think Jim Harbaugh, if he comes back, has a good chance of being in this spot again.
Without question. And I mean, my thought here, and I don't, pretend to know the exact job market in the NFL and what those numbers come out to. And I don't pretend to understand what it would mean to Jim Harbaugh, but like, how many better jobs are there right now than what he has at Michigan?
Well, and he set it up that way,
right?
He set it up. Now you are going to have to deal with the NCAA stuff, like Cheeseburger Gate, for example. They tried to negotiate a 4-game suspension for that. That got rejected by the Committee on Infractions. They then self-imposed the 3 games. So you can probably expect them to add to that. They're probably going to add more. Yeah. And then you got the Connor Stallion stuff. And whether Jim Harbaugh knew or not doesn't matter, because they've changed the way the NCAA rules work, where they can tag it to the head coach no matter what.
Yeah.
No matter what they knew. So that's the part you kind of wonder about. But I think, based on what we've seen from Michigan this year and the way they've defended him, even if it was a suspension of like half a season, I think they just roll with him. There's like, hey, we did it last year, won a national championship. Let's go do it again.
Yeah. I mean, are you going to hire somebody better than Jim? I guess is the job market better?
Well, you also have Sharon Moore
100%.
to handle it.
100%. Yeah. I mean, you're in good shape. And I mean, I think the thought for me, if you're Jim Harbaugh too, like, I want to put myself in a market where I am the most valuable as possible. Like, is his value going to go up if they win 10 games next year? Like, is his value in a volatile place? I don't think so. Like, the NFL is going to be there for Jim Harbaugh when he wants to go.
Yeah.
And so if you got a good spot at Michigan, the job that you don't feel amazing about in the NFL isn't there, like, let's run it back another year with our quarterback and JJ.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And again, there is lots of talent left. They are losing a lot of talent, but they've recruited well. This is one of those where you look at them next year and you compare them to what Ohio State's bringing back. I'm picking Michigan
without
in
question.
that game. So that's, and you've got Oregon now, you've got Washington in the league. It's going to be very interesting for them. Let's talk about what college football looks like as we turn the page. But first, I want to tell you about Game Time. Right behind us, they are trying to clean up confetti at NRG Stadium because there is a playoff game. The Texans host a playoff game this weekend. If you'd like to go, you can get tickets on Game Time. Use the code Staples. Get $20 off your first purchase. You can actually see what your seat it looks like in the app before you buy it. Couple taps, and then you got it. Or maybe you want to turn the page to college basketball. Well, just down the road in College Station, Kentucky's coming.
Ooh.
Kentucky's coming to play the Aggies.
Must see TV.
So if you want to go to Reed Arena and see Kentucky play the Aggies, you get those tickets on Game Time. Easy, easy, easy. Use the code Staples. $20 off your first purchase. Game Time, last-minute tickets. Less stress. Just get yourself to the game or the concert or the comedy show, because they have tickets for all of them. So use that code Staples, $20 off your first purchase. All right, JD. Now, you're not going on Game Time quite yet to get those 2024 college football season tickets, but when you start looking, you're going to be looking at Oregon playing Big Ten games.
Yep.
Washington playing Big Ten, USC playing Big Ten games, Arizona playing Big 12 games, Texas and Oklahoma playing SEC games.
Yeah.
This sport is changing dramatically. And oh, by the way, when we're sitting at this thing next year, the culmination of a 12-team playoff.
Yes.
I mean,
it's going to be awesome.
It's going to be crazy.
It's going to be absolutely incredible.
Think about all that could change, how different this is going to feel come August. Like, we're going to go, even in July, we'll go to SEC Media Days, and Oklahoma and Texas will be there.
It'll be in Dallas. It'll be a home setup for them.
Exactly. It'll be like the Red River.
Yes.
So then you'll go to Big Ten Media Days, and Washington, USC, UCLA, and Oregon will be there.
It's going to be so awesome. It's going to be so awesome. And also, we'll have a number of pretty incredible non-conference games next season. I mean, Texas and Michigan playing each other, which
Notre Dame, Texas A&M right out of the gate.
USC, LSU, and Vegas.
Yes.
I mean, we're going to have just a smorgasbord.
Actually,
and it won't hurt them.
I think LSU's trying to win the Big Ten title because they play USC and UCLA.
So going for it.
God, it's going to be so exciting. So I wrote a column, JD, where I talked about the teams that should think they have a chance, should go through this offseason with hope of not just making the playoff, but of winning a national title. I came up with 16. And I think part of that is because I watched Michigan and Washington get here.
Sure.
And I didn't watch another Alabama-Ohio State game or Georgia-Ohio State. I think if we'd seen another one of those, we're like, well, I don't know what the 12-team playoff is going to be like. Probably these teams that get all the 5-star recruits just smash everybody. But I feel like this season has taught us that things are changing a little bit. I don't know if it's all NIL, if it's the transfer rules changing. Is it just the COVID year allowing some of these teams to be incredibly old, which sometimes trumps raw talent?
Yeah.
But it feels like there's more hope right now.
Oh, without question. And just the way the portal has impacted this whole thing. Like you mentioned it. I'm looking at a team like Ole Miss, the way they've been active in the portal. A team like Ohio State, who very conveniently, under the cover of Michigan winning a national title, lands the commitment from Quinshon Judkins to the Buckeyes. And so you got him, you got Will Howard. Like, so just the continual, I don't know if balance of talent's the right way to say, because already talented teams, but the way you can retool a roster and have what you need and be able to compete right away.
This Michigan
it's changing the thing.
This Michigan team that just won is a prime example of that. You know, there were some spots they needed to plug or places they just needed a little bit more depth. And so they get Drake Nugent to play center. They get Ladarius Henderson to play left tackle. They get Josiah Stewart to rush off the edge and create the deepest defensive line in America. And you can really do it. Like, even if you're a good team and you've recruited well and you're happy with your roster, there's always that one guy who you can plug in and make it just a little bit better, unless your dad was swinging.
Sure.
Then you just don't do it.
Then you don't do it at all. I mean, Washington's a great example too. They're probably not in this game without Michael Penix Jr.
Dylan Johnson,
integral part of that. Giles Jackson. I mean, he was a pretty good addition as well to that receiving core. Like, both these teams, I think, utilized the portal and were able to be in this game in large part because of the portal. In Washington, I think, with Michael Penix Jr. obviously is a very, very prime example of that. And I think we'll see that magnified in the 12-team playoff.
Hey, we saw Will Rogers throwing passes to his former Mississippi State teammate, Dylan Johnson. So Will Rogers will be Washington's quarterback, or one of Washington's quarterbacks next year. We'll see if I'm assuming he's prepared to win the job because he's coming off 4 straight years starting at Mississippi State. But he was here. He was chucking passes before the game and had the jersey on, and you're just thinking, wow, this is where it's going. Yeah.
And I saw him actually, Andy, as I was walking out onto the field for us to go do our post-game hits. It was sort of uncomfortable because I'm walking on the field as the Washington players are walking off. But in the tunnel, I see Will Rogers, dapping up his teammates and kind of comforting and consoling them, like already kind of taking on that leadership role, which was cool to see.
Yeah. And I'm just excited about what's next, because we are going to see basically a different sport, a completely different sport. And I think the part I'm more excited about, I like the 12-team playoff. I think there's going to be really good matchups. I think it's going to make those weekends after the season a lot of fun. But I just think the regular season schedules are getting better.
Yeah.
You look at adding, sprinkle Oklahoma and Texas into the SEC and take away divisions, and suddenly everybody's schedule gets more fun.
Yes.
And Big Ten, you bring those 4 teams in, you take away divisions. Everybody's like Penn State has a 2-game season every year for how many years?
Yeah.
They've got a 5-game stretch where I'm going to get some of this wrong because I don't have it in front of me. But it is, I want to say it is UCLA at home, at USC, Wisconsin, Ohio State, and I'm blanking on the
Jeez.
It's crazy.
Hunger Games.
It's crazy.
Across the board. Across the board. And I think one thing too, if you win the national championship, you're probably going, close to what an NFL regular season would be. So the way that these kids are going to have to train, and the way that I think strength and conditioning staff's going to have to adapt to keep these kids fresh for the entirety of a season, plus a playoff run, plus a national championship game. Like, we saw these guys today, and nobody was at 100%. You add some more games onto that. I think, like, Andy, we're in the semis this time next year.
And what's interesting about that is I thought that would probably favor the Alabamas and the Georgias of the world. I'm not so sure, because after watching Alabama in the Rose Bowl when they couldn't snap and they didn't have a center that they felt comfortable with, that's an Achilles heel that I think every team's going to have one of those. There's going to be something they can't overcome that they got to work around. And so it's going to make it, I don't know that we're going to see teams as deep as 2019 LSU or 2012 Alabama. I just don't know that they're going to be able to fill in like that the way they have.
I think it might be more important in that era to be multiple. And I think Michigan was similar to what you'll want to see. JJ McCarthy obviously taking even another evolution, but he was really timely tonight. Like, being able to fight multiple styles to where you're backed into a corner, similar to what you said about Alabama, 3rd and 7, you feel good about converting that kind of a game, if you will. So It's going to be a lot of fun, man. It's going to change the entire sport completely.
So, of all the teams moving to another league,
Mm-hmm.
which one are you most excited to see in their new league?
I can't wait to watch Oregon because I think the way that they're built on the line of scrimmage, as much as we make of their 2 contests against Washington this season, I don't know. And I mean, I'm probably going to get hammered for this, but I don't think that Oregon gets pushed around up front the way that Washington did tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Washington, to be clear,
Washington
pushed around Oregon pretty well.
Around.
So, I mean,
Exactly.
maybe that's a moot point, but I think just the way they're built on the line of scrimmage, the way Dan Lenny's going to continue to push the envelope on the talent side of things, like I think they're going to be in a really good spot to compete day 1 in the Big Ten.
I'm excited to see Texas in the SEC.
Ooh,
because they've always been this larger than life thing, even if they haven't been winning.
Yeah.
But now they are winning. Now they're good. You've seen Steve Sarkisian and his staff develop those high profile recruits. Now they're making NFL players out of them, which they weren't doing before. And so they now go into the Shark Tank with Georgia, with LSU, with Tennessee. Oklahoma comes with them, obviously.
yeah.
With Ole Miss. Like, these are all teams vying for the SEC title now. I just think that, they can't Bigfoot anybody in this league. They're going to have to go beat them. And the good thing is they're not what they were 2-3 years ago. They are in a position to come in and compete right away. And I think that's going to be so much fun.
And those teams have to go into the Sark Tank.
And
get ready to go week in and week out because they're going to be the new kid on the block. And it's going to be, we'll show them how to play SEC ball. And it's like, well, Texas took down Alabama in Tuscaloosa. They're walking to that conference. And if you lose Texas's first year in the SEC to the Longhorns, like, might not be a great look. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. 12-team playoff will be fun too. I've been thinking about all these little things that we just, they're going to sneak up on us.
Yeah.
So when I was doing those teams that should have hope, I put Arizona in there. I put Louisville in there. I put Florida State and Clemson in there. This is hope for national title. And,
it's fair.
And people were pushing back. Like, what are you talking about? I was like, guys, you do understand, assuming the CFP makes the changes we think they're going to make, with 5 conference champs getting an automatic bid, 4 conference champs will be the top 4 seeds because you'll have to be a conference champ to get a top 4 seed. That probably means that the ACC champ and the Big 12 champ are top 4 seeds.
Yeah.
Like, unless the Mountain West or the American just has a crazy good team that blows through everybody. But that means they're probably getting a bye. That means, like, if you get Notre Dame in the 5 slot, because remember, Notre Dame can never get a bye because they're not in a conference.
Sure.
But let's say you're the 4 seed and Notre Dame gets the 5 slot. They play the Mountain West champ in the 12 slot at home. You're getting them in the quarters. That's probably a coin flip.
And we're coming off 2 seasons. I understand that in the 12-team playoff, the thought will be, well, we won't see a TCU Georgia kind of matchup because TCU will have lost before then. But even so, like, we have TCU and Washington that both competed for national titles in back-to-back seasons.
Yeah.
Like, having Arizona in that conversation is absolutely a valid thought at this point.
And we don't have a situation where Florida State gets screwed.
Yes.
Like, if they go 13-0, they are in the playoff. They're actually probably going to be a top 4 seed in the playoff. And look, it was horrible what happened to them this year.
Yeah,
it sucked.
No question.
They didn't. The committee was going to make a decision that was going to make people furious no matter what.
Yeah.
And the Florida State people, unfortunately, the ones that had to end up being furious. Florida State players and coaches had to deal with, like, if I'm the coach, I don't know what you say to them.
Yeah.
That never has to happen again.
Never again. And they'll be able to settle on the field, even if they find themselves not getting a bye. Okay, well, you don't get a bye. That's all right. Go prove it. Go handle business on the field. And
but they would have had one.
They would have one in the ACC.
In
the
system
absolutely.
that's coming, they would have had a bye because Alabama would not have been with a bye. They would have been the 5 seed.
Absolutely.
So I just think it's going to be a more fun situation. I know people don't like change. A lot of hardcore college football fans, not the most, not the biggest fans of change.
Sure.
But these are changes that are going to make this sport more interesting. They're going to be more interesting from a week-to-week perspective because the games will be better. I don't think people understand how bad some of the schedules have been in the last 20 years. When everybody basically decided we got a schedule to go undefeated.
Yeah, that's fair.
That takes all the fun out of it.
Sure.
Now, we're not probably going to see a lot of undefeated teams. Like, this was a 15-0. We were going to have a 15-0 champ no matter who won in this game tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that we're going to see a Are we going to see a 17-0 champ or an 18-0? I just don't. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, and I mean, so here's my question to that, Andy, because I think I probably just transparently lean more towards that college football fan that you're talking about that says, well, but I love the way it's been. And some of that's nostalgia. Some of that is me not being up for change. So my thought is, okay, well, I love Michigan, Ohio State for a spot in the playoff, or I love Texas and Alabama. And at that point in time, we're thinking that's going to impact both those teams.
If you love ripping your opponent's intestines out,
yes,
it's probably not going to be as much fun for you. If you love that one moment where you just put a knife through their heart and they have to suck it up for another year,
sure,
it's not going to be for you.
Okay.
But if you can enjoy, like if you're a Michigan fan who can simply enjoy beating Ohio State, here's the other part. You might get to go beat them again.
Yeah.
And imagine the psychological damage that would do if you beat them twice in a month.
Very true. Very true. No, either way, I think what you're saying is absolutely true. Like once we get, and I've said this, like Georgia versus Texas. Yeah. Twist my arm. I'm there for that. That'll be phenomenal.
Yep. All right. Before we go, I wish I'd brought a little bit of bourbon so we could pour some out for the Pac-12. This was the final Pac-12 football game.
Yep.
It's now the 2-pack. Oregon State, Washington State. They've got all the money. They've got the name.
Yep.
They're going to play, I guess. Like the winner do they play each other normally and then play each other in Vegas?
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to work.
Well, the CFP is not going to let them declare themselves conference champions, get an automatic bid, because you're going to have an 8-team conference. And they're playing, basically quasi Mountain West schedule. I would assume when all the dust settles, we'll see some sort of partnership where the Pac whatever reforms with those two schools and the schools in the Mountain West, because the Pac brand is stronger. But it's so made, like a year ago today, we knew they were trying to figure some stuff out with their TV contract, but we didn't see this coming. Like,
no,
the idea that we would watch a national championship game with two teams that are going to be in the Big Ten next year, and one of them is in Seattle.
No, had no gauge for that. And I mean, honestly, I hope that we're able to kind of preserve the branding a little bit of what Oregon State has been, Washington State has been, because quite frankly, I mean, Oregon State, they were kind of in that playoff mix to a degree, maybe not right in the mix.
Yeah,
but
they were very good, but
impacting the 12-team playoff. They're in there.
Yeah, and the saddest part of that is Jonathan Smith had to leave.
Yeah,
like when the opportunity presented itself to go to Michigan State, you have to do that at that point because of what's happened to Oregon State. So it's very frustrating to watch. And the Washington State fans are the best in the world. They're amazing. I hope that they can still enjoy this sport, be competitive. And I think they'll be competitive. I think they'll be very competitive with who they're playing. They're still going to play Washington, still playing the Apple Cup, still playing the Civil War. I hope they can every once in a while stick it up. Washington's, just for what happened. But I think this is going to be a very odd offseason because our brains are still going to be trained for the 4-team playoff. Yep. Our brains are going to be trained for the old conference alignments. And so we'll help you on the show. We'll do some primers as the months go by.
Sure.
We're like, okay, guys, like we'll have a day where we just remind you, Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado are now in the Big 12.
Yep. And hey, they could lose this game and they're probably still going to find their way into the playoff for whatever team we're talking about there.
Hey, JD, I don't think we can close out the 2023 season. I don't think we can close the book on it. We have not mentioned a certain person even once in this podcast. And I don't think you can fully finish talking about the 2023 season unless we mention this person.
I think I know who you're talking about. Coach Prime?
That's right.
Okay, there it is.
He's coming.
There it is.
He ain't hard to find.
And I mean, if they
he's kind of hard to find right now.
Depends on who you ask. He's been a little more difficult to find, but I mean, with the way they've upgraded via the portal, or we think they've upgraded.
I think they have.
I think anything's an upgrade from last year.
I don't know. I don't know if they have. I read there was a slate of stories about, look, Colorado's really killing it in the portal.
Sure.
And those are like you and I who cover the portal every day, who get our NACOsifications from Pete Nakos. Like, we're like, no. Ole Miss has upgraded through the portal.
Yes.
Like Colorado just seems kind of the same.
I think they have gotten a little bit better, and that's not to make anything of who they've got, but more so who they had.
Yeah.
Like, when you get, the next version of the Android, you still have an Android.
Now, Jordan Seaton That's a big one.
100%.
Getting the number one offensive line recruit.
Even as a true
that's
freshman.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Coach Prime year 2, I don't think he will dominate the headlines the way he did in year 1.
Yeah.
Unless they just really start winning.
Let's make a bowl game. From Colorado, let's make a bowl game and enjoy that.
Before we go, we've closed the book on 2023. Congratulations to Michigan. Hail to you, victors. There's still confetti on the field. But let us do the dumbest possible thing and make predictions for the 2024 season. I'm not going to say we don't have to predict a national champion. We don't have to predict who's going to make the playoff, but I want conference champions. I want you to. All right. So let's start. I guess we'll do the Power 4. Is that what we're calling? What are we calling it now?
Power.
It's really
4,
the Power 2.
I guess.
And then there's a defined middle class in the ACC and the Big 12.
Yeah.
But that doesn't sound good.
The college football neighborhood.
I like it.
I mean, you got kind of the
You got
boroughs.
the 2 giant houses on the hill, and then 2 just pretty nice ones.
Picket fence.
Yeah.
And, you know, reasonable size yard.
Okay. All right. I like it. The new Big 12. Who you got?
You know, Cam Rising back for another year. I mean, to me, it just seems like it never matters who Utah does or doesn't have returning, and they got a quarterback and they got Kyle.
They always have dudes up front too.
They always got dudes up front. I'll go Utah to win the Big 12.
Okay, I struggle here because I love what Arizona did at the end of the season. Noah Fafita was fantastic throwing a T-Mac. You've got that 2022 class they brought in. They built the whole plane around it basically, and it's working for them. But did you watch Avery Johnson in the Pop-Tarts Bowl? Kansas State, baby. 5-star. He's got the flow. He's fast. He's got a big arm. I think I may go Wildcats.
I like it. I don't hate that one bit.
Baby.
I don't hate that one bit.
All right. Let's go to the ACC.
This is a tough one, man. Because I think common sense would probably say, okay, well, Florida State was really good last year. Mike Norvell's got that thing ascending. I'm going to kind of zig right here while we're zagging. We're sitting here and I guess we're past midnight now. So it's what, January 9th?
Yep.
2024. Let's get a little bit crazy. Let's say Miami figures it out.
I was wondering if you were going to do that.
Figures it out. You know, they've gotten better every single year. They played well enough to be 8-4. They didn't take an east. They were 7-5. Let's say they kind of get that thing revved up. The young talent ascends, and they go ahead and win the ACC. Now,
Dabo tells me I got to buy stock in Clemson.
Yeah,
he's been telling me that all season through the second half of the season.
Yeah.
So do I buy stock in Clemson? You say the Canes get it figured out. They had the massive O-line class last year, massive D-line class this year. You know what I'm going to do? Because they got screwed, and I think they need to make the playoff.
Okay, I like it.
Give me the Knowles.
Boom.
And I don't know if it's going to be DJ Uiagalelei at quarterback. It might be Brock Glenn.
Could be.
But I think Mike Norvell has earned some grace here. I think he's shown that he can rebuild, and they've built through the portal. Now we're going to see some of the guys that they've brought in from high school that they've been able to develop. And, you know, keeping Adam Fuller as the defensive coordinator, keeping Alex Atkins, who is going to be a head coach very, very soon. Yep. But they got one more year with him as the OC. I'm going to go Knowles on this one.
I like that.
All right, let us go to the SEC.
Nice house on the hill.
Yeah, but they didn't have anybody playing in this game.
Nice house on the hill.
Didn't have anybody playing for national title this year.
Power outage currently in 2023. Okay. I think they flipped the lights back on in 2024. Right. Man, with Georgia, they got Carson Beck coming back.
Yep.
They got Trevor Etienne through the portal. They got some other playmakers through the portal. I have a hard time betting against Kirby Smart and company. I understand that Alabama will have Jalen Milroe next year. I think that Georgia's on a mission. I think Carson Beck and co. find their way to win the ACC, or the SEC rather.
Heart wants to go with the Longhorns, but my brain says you're right.
Okay,
I'm going to go with Georgia as well for the SEC.
There we go.
Boring chalk pick, and I'm sorry, but they didn't win this year.
They did not win this year. You're absolutely right.
Some of us got a little enamored with Alabama at SEC Media Days. Thought we were wrong for a lot of the season.
Sure.
Turned out right, but I'm going to go with Georgia again. I do think Georgia probably was the best team in the SEC this year, but did not win on the important day.
Yeah.
Well, the importance of that day changes next year. Now, whether they win or not, they're probably going to be in the playoff.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I'm with you. I'll take Georgia. Now let's talk about the league that produced the reigning national champs.
Yep.
You got the Michigan Wolverines. You got the new blood in Oregon. You got the Huskies, who they played for the national title. You got the Buckeyes. You got the Nittany Lions.
Gosh, this is so tough. I'm going to go ahead and operate under the assumption that either a JJ McCarthy or a Jim Harbaugh will not be back. Now they're still wildly talented.
One of them is not back.
One of them is not back. So still wildly talented. If they don't have JJ McCarthy, I think that does change things quite a bit. And not to say anything about Jaden Davis, not to say you don't go get somebody in the portal. I just think for Ohio State, if it's not next year, when's it going to happen for Ryan Day?
Yeah.
Like, I think the pressure is enormous, and they are actively hitting the portal the way they are for a reason. I think Ohio State gets over the hump. I'll pick Ryan Day and company.
Wow.
To get it done.
Okay.
Not popular as confetti is falling on the good folks in Ann Arbor.
I'm not feeling
with it.
Not feeling Ohio State. Right
Okay.
now.
Okay.
Although it sounds like there might be a little bit of retooling of staff, so we'll see what happens. But Dylan Gabriel and the Oregon Ducks sound pretty good.
Yeah, I like it.
But you mentioned, does JJ come back? Does Jim Harbaugh come back? I think if JJ comes back, whether Harbaugh comes back or not, I think if Harbaugh comes back, that's great. I think if he doesn't, Sharon Moore will do a fine job leading the program one way or the other. I think Michigan does it again.
Wow. Okay.
I just like the way they're built.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
I like the way they're built. I feel like they're built to win multiple ways, and they have some alien type talent
without question
on this team, which look, Ohio State does too. But if we're talking to you now, they play different positions, so I think it's a little bit apples and oranges. But like, if you're picking a team, and you can have JTT or you can have Kenneth Grant, I'm going KG78.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
That's who I'm taking. Like, Michigan's got more guys like that than people realize.
No, I don't blame you one bit. I wonder a little bit if there will be a point where they have to have more in the pass game, if they have enough weapons. But no, I think picking Michigan today after what we just saw, if they get JJ McCarthy back, I don't dislike that pick at all.
Well, clip these. Guarantee we'll be wrong on a lot of them, but that's the fun. We get to change them like 20 times before these guys ever play a game again. JD, it's been a fun season. Our long national nightmare begins now, but that's okay. Spring practice is soon. We'll talk to you soon.
Heck yeah.